everyone, and welcome to this next exciting episode of Kelly's Quest. Today I'm here with my guest Max Baern, and we are going to be making chocolate chip cookies because today is a very special day. It is March 31st, which is also the Transgender Day of Visibility. And in our current climate in the world, especially when it comes to transgender rights and the oppression that transgender people are feeling from our government, I felt, what is the best way we could fight back against this oppression today? And the best way I could think of was to make some sweet chocolate chip cookies, Max. So thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm really looking forward to learning how you're going to make these cookies. Because I don't know how to cook, you all. Like, part of my problem was growing up, the kitchen was a woman's place. And my family did not see me as a woman. So therefore, I was not allowed in the kitchen. And then anytime I did want to go into the kitchen, I felt this angst of, oh my gosh, now everybody knows I'm a woman and I'm trying to keep it a secret. So to be here today with you to learn how to bake these cookies is going to be fantastic. So thank you for being here.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
And I'm going to just let you take the lead on this because I don't know how to cook, y'all.
Okay. So I guess I'll start with like a brief backstory. The cookie recipe I'm using is based off of the original chocolate chip cookie recipe by Ruth Wakefield, who was actually born in Massachusetts. And she was trying to make chocolate cookies, made a mistake because she thought that chocolate chips would dissolve into the cookie and turn it into a full chocolate cookie, and instead they created pockets of chocolate. Yeah, no, right? What a mistake.
Oh, no.
And chocolate chip cookies have kind of become a very sort of classic benchmark for a lot of chefs. A lot of them have what they deem to be their best chocolate chip cookie. And a lot of it does definitely come down to personal preference. So every chef's sort of top creme de la creme of their chocolate chip cookies is going to be a little different. Some of them like them to be gooier, some of them like to have more of a snap. I like a snap on the edge and a gooey inside, which is why 375 for the oven works best, because it allows the edges to firm up, because it melts them fast enough that the edges start to crisp, but the soft stays gooey. So it's hot enough, basically.
Okay, so just so I can understand this, the creme de la creme of chefs, their chocolate chip cookies, it's a science.
Yes,
there's a lot of chemistry involved with it. So this isn't just something they go, oh, I'm just going to do this, 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 and this, and ta-da, there's my cookie. There had to be a lot of experimenting.
Yes.
And trial and error.
And for me, my mother was a pastry chef, so I've been sort of around this whole like test kitchen world. She has subscriptions to America's Test Kitchen. I've been to King Arthur Flour Company multiple times and taken their classes and seen their massive facilities where they just test like 1 gram differences of yeast to see how much of a difference it makes in their bread and the proofing. So I've always been kind of fascinated by like, wow, you know, you have to test so much in order to get like what you deem to be perfect, because there's so many variables. I mean, like the ingredients alone are part of it, right? You have butter, eggs, sugar, flour, and chocolate chips, but you also have what temperature the oven's at. I mean, the humidity in the room, some people focus on. I chose not to because that's too far for me.
Okay.
And last year, when I was a graduating senior, I had the opportunity to kind of explore this in great depth and make over 500 cookies and really test every single variable I could to figure out what I wanted in my cookie. So the first step we're going to do here is brown the butter. In order to do that, we melt it and basically caramelize the milk solids inside of it so that you get this much nuttier, sweeter flavor out of it.
Okay, and what is this you're adding right now then, did you say?
That was dehydrated milk powder. So basically the component of butter that allows it to caramelize and brown is the milk solids within it.
Okay.
So a couple of people have sort of figured out that dehydrated milk powder is kind of the same thing as the milk solids within the butter, because butter is a suspension of fat and milk protein. So what you can do is you can add it in so you get even more of that caramelization, which is, you know, really intense brown butter flavor.
I'm all for that. And you put in 4 sticks of butter. Does your
Yes.
recipe call for 4 sticks of butter?
The recipe calls for 1 cup of butter.
1 cup.
I'm doubling that amount because as it melts, a lot of the moisture is going to leave. And as that happens, a lot of the amount of material we have left is going to start to leave too. So we need to account for that. So what I'm doing right here is I'm doubling it up, and I'm not going to use all of this, but what I am going to do is I'm going to remeasure the amount that I need once this is all done. And that can happen in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
What I recommend the most really would be when this is done, cooling it down all the way to room temperature, and then remeasuring from solid. It'll still be soft enough that you can scoop it with a cup measurement, but it won't be full liquid, which is good because that allows you to actually whip it up with the sugar and incorporate air into kind of the sugar matrix.
Okay. So that it bonds to it.
Yeah.
So I see this froth developing on the top now.
Yeah, that is the separation of the milk solids from the butter, which can happen in a couple of different ways. Sometimes you'll get a much cleaner separation. Like you'll get this really sort of refined, the technical term for it is ghee, which means like specifically just the clarified butterfat. And this is much sort of milkier, I guess.
Okay.
Like it's harder to see through. You have a much thinner froth kind of mixed all the way throughout it, which is good for what we're doing because we want it all to kind of cook at the same time and we want it to sort of stay together a little bit more. And as it browns, you'll see this froth go from like a clean white to toffee, and then I'm going to get it as close to black as I can because I'm a bit of a daredevil. I recommend sort of sticking with kind of a nice caramel so that you don't risk burning it.
So what happens if it burns? What damage does that do to the cookie?
So the more brown you get, the more it's going to sort of taste nuttier, toastier, and it's going to be like kind of soft and nice and nostalgic. But the second it crosses over that threshold, it's going to taste bitter. It's going to taste like you're eating charcoal because it's carbonized. And it'll look black. It won't look appetizing.
And there's no way to hide that in the cookie dough?
No.
Okay.
And you'll know by the smell too. Butter specifically is one of the things that when it burns, you have to get it out of the house immediately. It gets into the air and it smells so bad.
Sounds like you're talking from experience, maybe.
Maybe a little.
I mean, and that makes sense. If you're experimenting and you're trying to get it as close to that line as you possibly can, I would assume that sometimes you go too far because how else can you learn where the line is?
Yeah, definitely. And the more you do it, the more you kind of learn the difference. Like, also, you'll see like different stages. Like right now, notice how earlier it was a much thinner froth and it was white on the top and kind of more settled underneath. But now that it's boiling, you have it yellow throughout and it's kind of all bubbling up. There's much more air incorporated into it.
Okay.
And we'll see about 2 or 3 more stages. Like already you're starting to see the bubbles get smaller and they're going to start lasting longer. And you'll notice the smell too. Right now it smells fresh, it smells milky.
Right.
And it's going to start smelling pretty much like a chocolate chip cookie. It's going to give it that classic caramelized aroma that you want.
So are you waiting for the part that is frothing, the kind of the brownish part there? Are you waiting for that to disappear? Is that because I've noticed that it is slowly...
Yeah, so it's all come together.
Right.
And what's happening now is that basically all of the water has boiled off, which means that like the water was the thing that kind of allowed for the mixture of the milk solids to the butter itself.
Okay.
So now that that's gone, it's no longer emulsified. But you still get these really thin specks of milk powder. And if you see here, it's all white. There's a little hint of the caramelization happening,
Okay.
but you're not getting it yet. And as it continues, the bubbles are going to start popping slower and slower, and you're going to start to see the brown appear. Notice how it's getting like toasty.
Yes, I do see that.
And the bubbles have sort of started to slow down. You're getting a lot more of them and they're lasting longer.
Yep.
And the sound has kind of calmed down actually too. So we're getting really close here. So we slow way down and we kind of pay a lot of attention to it because this is where I like to get it as close as I can. You could call it here and this would be delicious, but I like to get it really close. So we're getting really close here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off the heat, and right before I pour it into the bowl, I'm going to let the residual heat from the pan continue to cook it, which is actually like I'm using this to my advantage right now. But if you're not careful and you think, oh, I've taken it off the heat, it's going to be fine. Thank you. It will continue to burn and you're going to be very sad because you'll be, but I did all that work and it was perfect and now it's not.
Oh, because it's still cooking.
Yep.
That smells delicious. Like, and it's not even a cookie yet. It's just butter and, what was it called again? Milk?
Dehydrated milk powder.
Dehydrated
also sometimes
milk.
called instant milk.
Instant milk, okay.
Yeah. So what you can do here with this is you can let it cool down all the way to room temperature. If you're going to do that, give it a stir every 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure that these little milk solids at the bottom incorporate throughout the butter. If you don't do that, when you go to measure it, you won't be able to get a full measurement with equal amounts butter and milk solid. Okay. And you might be able to not do that if you're using all of it at once. If you were to use the entire batch, then it wouldn't matter what it looked like before. As long as you creamed it with the butter and sugar, everything would eventually get incorporated.
Okay, so, and you said you would use about half of this
yes.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah. Let it go for a second. What's in here right now is about equal parts white and brown sugar. Again, like as I was researching this, I saw a lot of recipes that called for just full white or just full black, and it does definitely change the texture and flavor of the cookie. Black's going to be a little bit, brown sugar is going to be a little bit more intense, and full white is going to look lighter, and the crystallization is going to be different.
Okay, so here's another lesson you can teach me. What's the difference between a brown sugar and a white sugar? Is it just a processing or is it something else?
So as I understand it, like back in the old days, brown sugar was what we would expect from the refining process. And now today, because you would get all of these impurities mixed in with the sugar, because we couldn't fully extract just the sugar from it.
Gotcha.
But today, we're so good at it that most brown sugar is white sugar with molasses added back into it.
Okay.
And if you don't have brown sugar, that's actually a common way of doing it yourself at home, is just taking white sugar and I think it's about like a tablespoon for every cup, just mixing in some molasses, which you might also not have if you don't even have brown sugar, but you know.
But you might.
You might. So I want to get this like really creamed. So I'll try and let this go for another minute, but it looks like I'm going to have to do some of this by hand.
Okay.
So the difference you're looking for is you start out with this kind of clumpiness, like wet sand texture, and basically what you're looking to happen is you're looking for the color to lighten as more air gets whipped into it.
Okay.
And you're also looking for the texture to become puffier, basically. So it's going to look more homogeneous. And it's going to look more like a liquid and less like something that is solid mixed with a liquid.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. And now we're ready to add in the eggs. This is 2 eggs and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, or 2 teaspoons of vanilla. The original, I believe, in the modern Nestle Toll House recipe, which is where Ruth Wakefield worked when she invented the original.
Okay.
It calls for 1, but always add more vanilla. Always. Just gonna get the rest of that out there. And then you beat together the rest of your wet ingredients, basically. So I will say I used to do pretty much this entire recipe by hand. And I did that because you can't always trust the mixing bowl to get everything fully incorporated. And especially in the next step I'm about to do, where you mix in your flour, you really don't want any gluten development, because that'll make it more of a chewy cookie. And you want it to kind of, whether you're going for gooey or crunchy, you need it to not be holding itself together.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to finish incorporating these eggs and vanilla. There. So this is what we have right now.
Okay.
Just gonna mix it up a little bit. And now we can start adding in the flour. This is 300 grams of flour. I like to use grams because flour can be such a nightmare when you're trying to measure it by volume, since it naturally has so much air in it. So this is 300 grams. If you're using the standard cup size conversion, is about 150 grams per cup of flour. So you could call this 2 cups, but if you can, weigh it out. And then there's also a teaspoon of baking soda, which is another leavening agent. It's going to help it to rise. And 2 teaspoons of salt, which will help it to help bring the flavors together. It won't taste as sort of one note, kind of flat sugar.
Okay. So flour, because it doesn't compact completely when you purchase it, you're saying that going by weight is an easier way because volume can change depending on how much flour is in the, or how much air is in the flour?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the most common troubleshooting messages. Like, in the same allegory for, like, if you're working in tech and someone says, oh, I need help fixing my problem, they always say, turn it off and on again. If you go to a baker and you say, I can't get my bread to turn out right, they'll say, try weighing your flour. And the reason for that is because every single time you measure flour using cup measurements, it's going to come out different. If you use a really consistent method, King Arthur actually has a really adorable one. They call it their scoop, sprinkle, sweep method. So what you do is you aerate your flour as much as possible, where you kind of just keep lifting it up and sprinkling it back into the bag.
Okay.
And then you grab one of those sprinkled scoops and then you sprinkle it over your cup measurement. And you just keep doing that until you get a full cup. And then you level it off, which you can just do with your hand. And then you weigh it. And let's see how close I got. When the guy in the class showed us this, he got exactly 120. I was so impressed.
He's probably done it. Look at that, 122. That's pretty
122.
impressive, just to sit here and say, here, let me do this.
Yeah. So this is about good. You have the flour just mixed in so that the batter still looks wet. And this is when I add the chocolate chips.
Yes.
The chocolate chips are actually another interesting thing. Every person has a different recommended chocolate chip to use. Some people like them to be a darker chocolate, like 60 to 70% dark chocolate. And the reason for that is because, again, the rest of the cookie is so sweet. It's like 50% sugar, 50% flour with the butter and the eggs mixed in. So they want you to kind of get this nice complex flavor profile with a more bitter chocolate chip. When I was adapting this recipe, I went as traditional as possible, and I used straight Nestle Toll House chocolate chips because I wanted it to have that kind of element of like nostalgia and
Okay.
kind of trademark to it. Another thing a lot of people say is rather than using chocolate chips, they recommend cutting up chunks of chocolate. And the reason for that is because you get more interesting chocolate pockets. So rather than just having all uniform, perfectly like spherical chocolate throughout your cookie, you get some that are bigger, some that are smaller, and they're all like different shapes. They're like squares within your cookie.
So now this batch that you've just created, how many cookies is usually in a batch this size?
I usually got about 30 out of a batch.
I can eat 30 cookies, no problem.
I will say, I probably wound up making more batches of cookie for that project because I needed 500 and I ate about a quarter of those.
I do not blame you.
Yeah. So this is good now. And normally what I do is I lay it out on saran wrap into like a log, and then I refrigerate it for a couple of days. And the reason for that is so that all of it kind of comes together, like the flavors get to know each other. Actually, I think there's more to it than that, but the science gets really complicated, like with all that. So I'll give this a stir while I'm reminding myself to do that. And then we're ready to start laying out the pre-refrigerated cookie batch that I have made in preparation for this and make cookies. So this is the pre-prepared dough. So what you can do is you can use this scoop. This is about a tablespoon, and this will get you 30 of this. I like massive chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
So we're going to use the bench scraper and cut off like that much. And then what you can do, I saw this a couple of times in my research, is you can smush it up and break it so you get these crags on it. And then when you set it down, the way it will melt is it'll have these kind of like burnt, like more caramelized top parts while still maintaining a gooier interior. And I'll do one, for example, just to show like what it looks like if you do it with a fully smooth surface.
Okay. So what you're doing here is because of doing this, you're creating gaps for heat to get into different areas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to get this really nice sort of multi-textured, the caramelization is going to happen in different ways for all of these cookies. So none of these will be the same, and they're going to taste different in each bite too.
Okay.
And I should be spacing these out about an inch away so that they don't touch, because I'm making these pretty big, so they're going to spread out quite a bit.
Who knew that there would be a science to breaking up the dough before you put it on the
Right?
cookie sheet even? I mean, there's science all the way through this, isn't there?
Yeah, oh yeah. And again, it's so heavily researched that every person has sort of come up with another thing that they can do. I mean, you know, dehydrated milk powder, like we're chemically recreating butter.
Mind-blowing.
Put that one there since that one's smaller. So this will be about 7 with one little teeny one. And you'll see that this one's going to burn a lot faster since it's much smaller, so it'll be crispier while these are going to stay gooier, and you'll have a much more even surface on the top.
So these are all, because they're different sizes, means that they're going to cook at different rates.
Yes.
Okay.
These should all be roughly the same. This one might go a little faster, but not as fast as this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now how long are you planning on putting these in? I'm sure that's part of your research you did also, was how long should these stay in for?
Yeah. That was actually one of the hardest parts of my research, because both the temperature and the time affect it in pretty much the same way. But the interesting thing is that if you have it at a higher temperature, you'll get a much sort of crispier edge,
Okay.
Since it's cooking so fast. But you'll also form the shape of your cookie really fast, so you'll still get a nice gooey inside while the edges cook much faster, so the heat doesn't have
Gotcha.
as much time to permeate all the way through. And if you cook it slower, on a lower temperature, you'll get much gooier, sort of much more uniformly crispy, which is good too.
So, and you're looking for crispy edges, gooey center.
Yes, I am.
And that's why 375 was the sweet spot. And for
Yep.
how long?
10 to 13 minutes.
10 to 13 minutes.
Yeah. So I'll check it in 5 actually, and rotate it so that each of them get in the same spots of the oven, because ovens have hot and cold spots just because of the way the coil is wrapped around the surface.
Okay. So,
so-
there's no such thing as uniform heating in an oven?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
You can do some cool tests though. In fact, this isn't for ovens, but for griddles. One of the things that people like to do when they like get a new griddle in order to get familiar with it is they'll do pancakes, because what you can do is you can set them up in large surfaces over the entire thing and see how they all cook at different speeds. So you'll see like one here will cook really fast, but if there's less of a heating element like right here, it won't cook as fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we are with the cookies. As you can see, this one kind of spread out and it's much more uniform on top, where these ones have kind of deeper valleys. Like this one, it's a much gooier right there, where like right next to it you have this kind of peak where it's going to be much crispier.
Right.
And you can see here the edges are really brown, whereas the center is going to be much gooier. You can actually still see some moisture, some liquid that's going to make it really soft.
Okay. And so, did you put oil or Pam on the parchment paper? What was the strategy for that?
So you want to use a greased baking sheet with parchment paper, and that'll just help them come off easier. It also helps the bottoms brown nicely. So I'm going to do one of my little tricks here, which is to salt the tops just a little bit while they're still able to take it in. Just about that much is good.
So that will disappear as it's still, because they're still baking, correct?
Yes, yes, they do continue to bake after you pull them out. And the salt won't completely disappear, but it will adhere to the surface. It'll sink in a little bit more. And it'll really change the complexity of the flavor.
And because you're doing it by hand, different areas will have different salt content also.
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're going to let these cool for between 2 to 5 minutes, honestly. I mean, you can already feel like it's still hot to the touch. So when I do this, you can see that this has like that kind of reflectiveness to it, and it's not sinking into my hand. If this was, in fact, it might be the same on the bigger one. Yeah, you'll notice that this one is starting to sag a little bit, not appreciably so, enough so that we can take them and put them on a plate. So these are the finished product. Would you care to take a bite?
I absolutely would love to take a bite of one. Should we dink them? Dink. That was too big of a bite, because now I want to eat the whole thing.
So what I'm getting immediately from this is those incredible caramelization notes, not to toot my own horn. And I think the salt really does help tie everything together. Like the salt within the cookie does too, but especially that little finishing sprinkle. Half of the time I make this recipe, I completely forget it. And I'm always disappointed in myself, because you can't really add it too far after. Like you'll see, when I do that, not too much of the salt is coming off.
That's
you
true.
Still see it.
That's true. And I think for me, what I'm getting from it is just that touch of nuttiness that exists on the edges. And you were right, it is crispy on the outside, and there's a nice chew on the middle of it, nice and soft and moist. Thank you for putting years and years and years and hours and hours and hours of practice into this, because I'm the one that's winning on this one. But Max, I really do appreciate you baking these cookies and teaching me things, because like I said, this is totally new to me. And folks, this has been my first cooking show today that I've ever hosted. Max, thank you for being so gracious and being willing to be a guest of mine on the show. And remember, everybody, that it is Transgender Day of Visibility. So go out there, live your lives the best way you can, eat some cookies, and have a good time in life. Bye.